Welcome to today's Software AG Government Solutions webcast titled The Key to a Successful DoD Data Strategy, Secure APIs and Hybrid Integration. Software AG Government Solutions delivers leading-edge software that helps the U.S. public sector connect existing, new, and future technologies together, whether on-premise or in the cloud. Leveraging our leading integration platform, Web Methods, and our FedRAMP authorized IT portfolio platform, Alphabet, along with our highly effective Prove IT First and Prove IT Fast approach to solving government IT challenges, we specialize in helping customers optimize large-scale, mission-critical solutions across complex, extended enterprises. Complex IT Simplified. Today's program will be presented by Scott Gunther, a Principal Systems Engineer with Software AG Government Solutions. As we move through today's program, we invite you to submit any questions that you may have. You can submit your questions into the question box, which is located under the video window you're now viewing. We will address your questions at the end of today's program. In the event that we're not able to answer your question, your submission will be noted, and today's presenter will be back in touch with you as soon. This program is being recorded. You will receive a link to today's program and a follow-up email that will be sent to you within approximately 24 hours. It is now my pleasure to welcome Scott Gunther.
Thanks, Will. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Scott, and as Will mentioned, I'm a Principal Systems Engineer with Government Solutions, and today I'm presenting our API-led hybrid integration solution and describing how we see it playing a role in a successful DoD data strategy. So when DoD released the data strategy in September of 2020, they identified 7 goals that DoD must achieve to become a data-centric organization. And with all of the acronyms that DoD has, VALTUS is used to communicate these 7 goals. The goals, they must be achieved to become data-centric according to DoD, and they are making data visible. So this is to ensure consumers are able to locate the needed data, making data accessible so that consumers can retrieve the data, making it understandable and ensuring that consumers can recognize the content or the context of the data, making it linked, meaning consumers can exploit data elements through innate relationships, trustworthy, where consumers can be confident in all aspects of data for decision-making, interoperable, where consumers have a common representation and comprehension of the data, and then finally making it secure, where consumers know that the data is protected from unauthorized use or manipulation. So we see the following 4 challenges then related to achieving these 7 goals, and they are accessibility, security, discoverability, and scalability. So starting with accessibility, that's really the ability to retrieve data. When you think about all of the different data sources that are out there, from legacy mainframe to web applications, cloud-based, structured data, unstructured data, it's probably the biggest challenge around the data strategy is the accessibility of data. This is coming from systems that weren't necessarily designed with data sharing in mind. And then it's constantly changing too. We're in an environment where, being agile is very important. So accessibility is one of the biggest challenges that we see. Security, second challenge. This is perhaps the most important, being able to identify who can access data, who should have access, how do I control it, being able to apply a policy-driven approach to data, and enabling what we're hearing a lot about today with regard to Xero Trust architectures. Security, very important. Third challenge is discoverability, and that's really the ability to find the data or the services that are exposing the data. So how do I know what's available if I'm trying to build a new application? Where can I go to find out what's available? How do I expose that as a data source and make that known and published so people can find it if I'm the producer of it? How do I catalog it? All of those are common challenges around the discoverability. And then lastly, it's scalability, meaning how do we handle large amounts of data, large numbers of concurrent users. The time it takes to access the data is critical in a lot of these applications. If you're thinking about DoD and like command and control types of systems where you need access to data real time or near real time, making it highly available so that systems don't go down when the data is needed is vitally important. So we'd like to take a little community poll here and find out really from all of the participants what they feel is one of the biggest challenges around implementing the data strategy, if it's accessibility, security, discoverability, or scalability. So moving forward then, our solution, the Software AG's API-led hybrid integration solution, it really covers two areas. We call them API authoring and then API management. What we refer to as API authoring is really the implementation, the backend endpoint that we're protecting then with an API management solution. So it includes the connectivity to the backend data sources, language independent logic, visual mapping, etc. All of these are considered API authoring. And then API management refers to all the other aspects of API management where you're putting a gateway, protecting the items that you authored. So we're first going to focus on the API authoring aspect of it, and then get into it a little bit further. So accessibility is really achieved by the API authoring component. So access to data is really key, and the Web Methods platform provides unparalleled connectivity using the pre-built adapters and connectors. We certify and fully support every one of them, and at current, I think we have somewhere around 300 plus adapters and connectors to different data sources, applications. This is just a small representation of what we support. There's many more, but again, these are all fully supported by Software AG. We build them. We don't want customers to have to rely on partners or the community to ensure that their solutions are delivering on their requirements. So, and then another vital component for accessibility is really being having an agile approach and being able to get access to the data as quickly as possible. So low code and no code solutions are key to enabling access to that data. And we provide a graphical environment to implement adapter services. And here you can see that we have just a simple map. It's mapping from the left side of the screen through a transformation. It's doing a concatenation and then mapping that to a country element on the right-hand side of the screen. And it's all done just with drop and drag abilities. So we're going to take a look at creating an adapter service and showing you really how easily this is done. So I need to switch over to another session, and we'll go from here. So on this, this is our application designer, Software AG Designer. And inside of it, in this installation, I have an SAP adapter that's talking to an SAP instance that we have on AWS. And so to create a new adapter service, it's all point and click, and it takes you through a wizards-based interface. And I'm going to create a service around material. And then when you have the adapter, this screen will show you all the adapters that are on your system. I currently only have the SAP adapter. And it'll ask you for a connection. and then which type of template you would like to create. And we're going to do an RFC. In this case, I know that we have BAPIs that support the material that I'd like to get. So I'm going to look at all of the material-related BAPIs. And I want the get detail. I want the get detail BAPI. And then these tabs along the bottom let you pick the data that you want as outputs, the reply that you want as an output from the service. So in our case, what we have is we want to get the weights, dimensional type of things out of SAP for a specific piece of material. All right, and then I know from our SAP expert that for inputs, we need to provide material and a plant number. And that's it. So when I save this, I can run it to test it. And I do want material S100, 004, and 1000, plant 1000. And then when it executes, it pulls back the information from SAP, and then this can get exposed through web services to make a RESTful web service. And I have some of those assets here. There are API descriptors, and they look at the different REST methods that we want that are mapped to the actual GET service. All right, so hopefully that gives you a flavor for what we can do with adapters. So going back to our presentation then, that's really what we're talking about with our API authoring capabilities in the solution. We're going to focus now on the rest of what we have for APIs related to API management. So in terms of API management, we have two personas for the actors that work with the different components, right? So the first is the API owner or provider, and they're going to do the creation of the APIs that are going to protect that adapter service that we just created. And they have typically have access to both the API gateway and the API portal. And then after they set policies and scopes, or create packages and plans if they're looking to monetize any of their APIs, they will publish the API to the API portal. And then the second persona is that of a developer or a partner, and the partner will generally have only access to the portal where they'll do discovery of the APIs and then ultimately try to use the APIs in their applications, and at this point they can request access to the APIs through the API portal as well, where an API access key will be generated for them. All right, so this brings us to our next challenge then that we had, was the security aspect of it. So the API gateway is where we manage and apply and enforce policies. So this slide shows the most common deployment of an API gateway, where there's a threat protection gateway that's sitting out in a DMZ. And then this component handles denial of service types of activities, threat protections, virus scanning, that type of thing can also be implemented on this API. And then the API gateway that's in the local network receives the forwarded requests from the threat protection gateway. And this is where the policies are actually enforced and the endpoint is invoked. So the gateway behind the firewall is where we do all of the enforcement of security. And as you can see from the slide, we do things, delegate enterprise identity stores, cryptographic processing, SLA management, traffic management, et cetera. That's all handled on this API gateway. From a perspective of what we support for different standards, REST, SOAP, OData, WebSocket, JSON API, and GraphQL. And then we support them in both implementation first and interface first approaches. So, this gives you a lot of flexibility in what you want to do with your APIs. So, for example, if you're doing some heavy querying, OData or GraphQL might be a better fit than REST or SOAP web service. So the API gateway, it provides a user-friendly graphical interface for applying policies to your APIs. So starting from the client up at the top, it follows the blue progression through the different stages, the API stages, where individual policies can be applied at each of the different stages. So in this case, you'll see I'm highlighting identity and access, and then the policy shows up in the middle. And when you click on it, you can provide configuration elements to implement that policy on your API. All right, and then we talked a little bit about Xero Trust. So it's certainly a buzzword that's out there. We hear a lot about it. This is from a keynote address delivered by Vice Admiral Nancy Norton, who's the director of DISA. It was at a keynote, it was FCA's TechNet Cyber Conference in December, where she said DISA is moving to a Zero Trust type of architecture, where there are 3 principles. So the first of those is never trust, always verify, and then always assume there's a breach of security, and finally verify explicitly. So what Zero Trust does then in this type of API security type of implementation is adds the ability to protect your APIs in a way using API gateways that are fit for purpose. So main and edge gateway servers, they typically serve north-south traffic, and they protect and mediate more public APIs. And then micro gateways serve east-west traffic, and they protect and mediate private APIs, which are typically lightweight and carry only the policies that are needed based on the microservices that are deployed alongside of them. Service mesh protection has become more prevalent recently as well. So this diagram shows the relationship between a service mesh such as Istio, which uses an Envoy sidecar to do protection of Istio deployments. So each service has as a corresponding Envoy sidecar, and then this sidecar really provides basic layer 4 level type of protection for things such as resilience, service-to-service, mutual TLS, telemetry reporting, etc. And then what we add on top of that with what we call our app mesh, which is managed through the API gateway, is the ability to implement complex and advanced layer 7 or application layer types of policies. So here we get the ability to do API scoping, do different data transformations such as data masking, service result caching, centralized traffic throttling, all kinds of additional features that are applicable to the application layer. And so I want to get into API Gateway now and show you a little bit of what we can do with it in terms of a live demo. So flip back over to my screen. All right, and this is our interface for API Gateway. So it provides the ability to create your API. So if you're creating an API, you can do from 3 ways: either import a file. So if you want a Swagger or have a Swagger or a RAML file or even a WSDL for a SOAP service, you could do it. You'd import from a URL or create it from scratch. And in this case, I've done some work in advance. I have the material API loaded, so I was able to get the Swagger file from the implementation that I did for the SAP example, and load it in ahead of time. So what we have here is an interface. It defines all of the attributes, the details about the API, what you can do with it, the different components, and then documentation. In the terms of what we can do, the different functions inside of the API gateway, and let me get out a minute and I'll show you where scopes are applicable. This is another API that we have, and this has multiple resources. So where you would use scoping is if you wanted to apply a policy to just one of the resources that are applicable to the API. So in this case, there's a logging, and we're saying we want to log activity only for this method. And then when you're in assigning policies, it gives you a scope. So this is for the entire API, all of the collection of resources in the API, or we can look at just those resources that are scoped to logging. And in this case, if we look at the traffic monitoring, we can see that we have log invocation as a policy. But if we go back to the API scoping, everything else has just the service result cache. So this allows us to apply a scope to your APIs and then assign policies to the different resources that are available inside of the API. So getting back in then to my material, what we have is the ability to assign policies. And so I have just very limited policies that are assigned to this API. Transport level, we're saying we want to have HTTP simply because I don't have a HTTPS listener on the quick little server that I put together to show this. As you go around the circle, then we see traffic monitoring has an API applied, and I have service result cache enabled for this. And this is really important, and I'll show you a demonstration of this when we get into the API portal. I have it set with a time to live value of 10 minutes. So if you were applying a policy, you first have to edit it, and then you can apply any of the different policies that you want. So we can add this log invocation to this API and save it. And now when it gets to the stage in the life cycle, it's going to do a log invocation of that as well. All right, so that's API Gateway, the basics of API Gateway. We also have a lot of other capabilities inside of it. We can do mashups. We can assign applications to the APIs, and we'll see a little bit of that when we get into the API portal part of the demonstration. All right, so now shifting back to PowerPoint. We're going to talk a little bit about discovery and then see it real quick, what we can provide as far as discovery goes with our API portal product. So what we want to do is kind of shift focus to that of a developer persona so that we can discover this SAP API that we created. So API portal, it's a self-service site for developers. You can get in and register for access to it. It provides API documentation to potential consumers, as well as providing a platform for testing your SOAP and REST APIs. And then it also has a really nice social collaboration element. It allows users to share insights and their experience with using the APIs, and then being able to rate them. You can follow the APIs so that you get notices when something happens. If a system administrator updates an API, you'll get a little indication of that in your API portal screen. So these are just some of the screenshots that we took. Here's the little inbox that'll light up if something happens with this. You provide ratings, etc. So, and here's a little bit of advice. I added this. This was the material and plant that we wanted to take a look at on the API adapter, so that other people would be able to test this and get a good result out of it. So let's switch back over now again. Take a look at the API portal, and I'm logged in already. Oh no, my session expired, so I'll log back in. And we actually don't want the Okta. It is, we do have the ability to do single sign-on with this, and so that's what you saw earlier. There was Okta, but we're not set up for doing it in this demo environment currently. So this is the API portal. It has API gallery. I do want to log in, so that it knows me. And I have 8 notifications about updates that I did to the material feed earlier throughout the day as I was prepping for this. So the API platform, it has the gallery you can set up, and right now I'm looking at APIs based on maturity state. We can set up different communities, have different API groupings, and this, by the way, is totally customizable, and you can white label it to whatever look and feel that you'd like to have. But getting into the material API that's available, I wanted to just show you, it has a lot of the same information that we saw on the API gateway screens regarding what resources are available, which policies are applied. Here we can see there's a service result cache that we saw earlier. And then the try API is really kind of nice, where users can get in and try their APIs. So this field got populated. What I want to show to you is the service cache policy in play here. So it has a lot to do with our ability to cache data from the API and really address some of the scalability questions that come up earlier. So inside of my wrapper service that I created for accessing the SAP adapter, I created just a wait. If I send in plant 2000 for the same part, it waits for 10 seconds before it calls the adapter service. And so when I send this, we'll see it's going to turn. We're waiting 10 seconds, and it'll return data related to the API. And we can see it's 10 seconds. And now if I submit it again, it returns in 81 milliseconds. So what I'm emulating here is really like a delay, a long-running service. And that long-running service then is caching its service results, and its time to live was set for 10 minutes. You have the ability to set that to whatever you want on the policy, but you can see then for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be able to return this data that's generally static data in milliseconds versus it taking a long time to go out. So big important feature around scalability. Other areas of this, if we wanted to apply another policy, we're kind of running out of runway here in terms of having time to show you, but we could set a policy on the API gateway side for doing identity and access. So let me just do that real quick. If I add that and I say I want to apply a key to registered applications, now what this is doing is making a consumer of this API have to provide an API key in order to access it. So if I go back out and publish this, material, and I want to publish it to the API portal. It'll now have the policy on it for an API key. And if we go in and look in the API gallery, let's do like a screen refresh here, make sure it's up to date. We can look at the policies that are applied, and now we see that there is an API key available, or a policy for an API key. If we try this API, it's not going to work. We can put in plant, 1000 and our S100 204. Well, I take that back. It might have already. No, it won't. All right. So I need to go back to the material API, and then now since we have the API key policy applied to this, we can request access and get an access token. And so let me just call this Scott, so it doesn't get confused with anything, and I can request the token. So now what it did was it really creates an application on the API gateway called Scott. And what that's going to do then is provide an API key when somebody tries to access it. So these API keys are generated. They're obfuscated on here, this access token, because this is applicable only to that user that requested the key. And that would be me in this scenario. But now I can try the API, and I pick Scott for the key, and it'll pre-populate the API, the headers that I need to send for access. And then when I call this, it will return, hopefully, my information. So there we go. I was able to implement an application, provide an API key, securing down this API, doing API keys. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a flavor of what we can do with the API portal. Going back to the presentation then, the next piece then that comes into place is scalability. This challenge is something that we think we handle quite well. The first example of that was with the service caching that we can do. The other is taking a look at an API abstraction layer where you have all of your API assets and all of these different data sources that are, use cases really, providing users access to files, cloud apps, on-premise apps, databases, et cetera. And you have to be able to do this from the platform when it's tasked. So having a oversimplified here deployment architecture, what you could do, and this picture again kind of aligns with what we said is really a common threat protection and API gateway implementation. We can add more resources. We can scale horizontally. And in this case, the demo environment that we have, it is just the EC2 VMs that are deployed. So we could do that in this demo environment that we have, just and throw up another EC2 VM with API gateway on it and be off and running. But we do have flexibility for other deployment options as well, where we can address scalability. So this is, again, the EC2 VMs. We support Docker containers, all right? So we can scale through that, just applying more containers. And then we also can deploy in a Kubernetes environment. So lots of options for flexible deployment options that are going to meet your needs. That really kind of concludes talking about all of the different areas: accessibility, deployability, security, scalability. But if you would like to go out and take a look at what we do have images on Docker Hub for the API gateway, API portal, micro gateway. There's quite a few. If you go out to Docker Hub and just search software AG, you'll find all of the Docker images that are available out there. You can pull them down and test them out yourself. And that concludes. So, Will, it's back to you.
Thank you, sir. We have a bunch of questions, so we're going to see if we can't take them at this point. The first one I'm going to pose to you: is there any plan to provide out-of-the-box policy for antivirus policy to connect to FireEye or McAfee?
I don't believe there is. I don't believe that's a roadmap item. And I don't have handy what we do support from it, but you need to have an antivirus solution that supports whatever standard it is, and that's not that's the part that I don't have. And then you configure API gateway to do the virus protection component through that service that you've configured in API gateway.
Okay. The next one I have for you is a rather long one. It's a question with regard to scalability of the API details part of the application. Does it work, quote, on the fly from the schema? I ask because we are working on a huge OAS 3.0 schema with references between components as part of iOS standards. For us, a small OAS 3.0 schema is approximately 30 K lines with approximately 200 components, all with post, put, patch, get paths. Other API viewers, such as Swagger, cannot handle this scale of schema. Well,
we support in our API platform up through OpenAPI 3.0 currently. So I don't know if there's limitations on that, but we also support RAML and Swagger. So in terms of being able to import through a Swagger definition, if Swagger doesn't support it, we're probably not going to be able to support that either. If we can take a look at it and figure out, I'd love to get your information and we can try to help you out with it. It's really kind of a long question to understand and comprehend really what your issue is in terms of hearing it, but I'm more than happy to take a look at it and get your information and get some answers for you.
Okay, we will, to that person that has raised that question, we will be sure that your information is passed along to Scott and he will be in touch with you. The next one I have for you: do you see trends on software development from scratch, meaning no OTS software or minimal APIs?
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, maybe I'm misappropriating the letter. Do you see trends on SW dev from scratch, meaning no OTS, SW, or minimal APIs?
Again, I don't know. I don't have the context around the question. So
okay, we can get back to that person as well. No problems there. The last question that we've got done for you: when you scale horizontally, how do you pass the cache around that you showed?
So the service cache, Software AG has Terracotta as one of their solutions, and that's what we use to do all of our like clustering, making it cluster aware. So it's really a Terracotta server array that's that would be caching that information. And using that cache. So that's built in. Our Terracotta platform is built into the product. So that is how it as you scale horizontally, it uses the terracotta array to do that.
Okay, very good. With that, again, to all of those questioners, your information will be passed over to Scott, and he'll be back in touch with you as soon as possible to continue the dialogue that you've started. A very warm thank you to everybody that did take time from their day to join us for this program. And of course, Scott, a very warm thank you to you for your time and the very interesting presentation. With that, our program has now ended. Enjoy the rest of your day.